Welcome to the Inside Out Conversations. Every leader, no matter how accomplished, has that voice that says, "You're not ready" or "You're not enough." That's the inner critic, and it's louder than we think. Welcome to the ninth episode of the Inside Out Conversations. And I'm Charan, a personal branding consultant and the co founder of UX Consulting Services. And today I am joined by Manju, the founder of Flip Your Story, a mindset coach who helps leaders transform self doubt into self drive. We're going to talk about how top leaders tame that inner critic, recognizing it, reframing it, and using it to fuel instead of friction. Let's dive in. Hello, Manju. How are you doing?
Hey Charan, I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. So, I'm very excited to have you on this conversation because a lot of takeaways would apply to me as well. So, yeah.
I'm looking forward to share my wisdom.
Okay. So, as you are aware about today's topic with respect to how to tame our inner critic, okay, I want to understand first when it comes to people in leadership positions, even if they are top performers, do they have self doubt? If so, why?
They absolutely have self doubt, and the more they grow up the ladder, in most cases, it actually grows. Why does it happen? Is because the more they grow, the more the visibility. The more things are at stake. So when they go wrong, there are more people who are going to be knowing it. So obviously, as they grow, the self doubt also grows. And there are so many leaders who learn to manage it, and there are so many leaders who struggle in certain scenarios to manage it. So
Okay,
to
is it simply because of the fact that the the higher the position that they grow, the visibility grows? Is it just because of that?
not just because of that. If you look at it from the hierarchy point of view, it is just that they have grown, they have proved their metal, they have grown step by step. At some point they're also used to winning all the time, right? Recently I attended one of the events, and one of the very famous business coaches in India, Rajiv Talreja, he was speaking about how he had an experience recently when he went for an adventure sport where he's supposed to jump from a very from a very high point into water. And he said he has this affinity and liking towards adventure sport, but then the last 10 years has been success after success after success in most of the things, which has attuned him to only be successful. So he took quite a bit of time to actually convince his mind and actually take that leap. If it was say 10 years back, he would have like jumped in say a few seconds, but it took him good 10 minutes to actually convince himself before he took the jump. It is actually the inner voice which is playing, and it is coming up with like a lot of questions, suggestions, scenarios, and it is amplifying a lot of fears that it is dormant. So when you grow up the ladder, you've actually seen a lot of success, which makes you accustomed to success. So then that inversely there is a fear of failure which stems in, and that amplifies the inner voice.
I somehow feel that looking at what you described about the problem, is consistent success also a bit of a challenge, or do we need to experience failures here and there so that to keep us in check or something?
Absolutely. I think failure makes life interesting, right? See, if you're only going, if the graph is like this, you just think you know everything, right? The growth perspective just goes. And the thrill of being a human is actually learning and progressing, and that makes life life. That's my take.
Fantastic. See, since you mentioned about this, I wanted to ask you. So when leaders experience this self doubt as they grow in their positions, um, how do they have to look at it? Is that something they need to look at it from a point of, hey, I need to fix this, or do they need to look at it from a point of, hey, these are signals that we are growing? What's the way to look at it?
That's an interesting question. I think it purely depends, and but in most scenarios, trying to control it doesn't really work. Because most often you're afraid when you're going to indulge in something which matters to you. The fear doesn't just strike you just like that. The inner voice is not very dominant when you're going to do something fun. It usually comes when you're going to do something which is really important to you, right? So in that case, don't try to control it, because it's going to be like this adamant child. The more you try to control it, the more the child screams. Similarly, the more you try to control it, the more louder the inner voice becomes. Then you actually forget what are you there for in the first place, and you're constantly having an inner battle. So try to make it your friend. Try to understand. First, recognize that it is there. Okay, the inner voice is coming in. I'm, that is just getting triggered. So understand that it is something important that you're venturing into, and then tell yourself, hey, it's important, but I'm also prepared. That way you can ease it, make it your friend rather than trying to control it and put a lid on it.
Okay, you mentioned about how do we understand our inner voice in first place, right? Now I want to ask, can somebody who's being ambitious can also have this critical inner voice? Both of it to go together?
Absolutely. I think people who are ambitious, they're also very fast, right? You would see that quality. Somebody who's ambitious, they want to actually do things, try things, multiple things. And multiple things, when you do it, there are a bunch of things which fails also. And when you are entering a high stake situation, it is going to be very pressurizing, right? So there is a back of the mind, there is a voice which is going to say, hey, what if this fails? What if this fails? It's a very natural way, as human beings, these are the instincts which has kept us alive many millennia ago. This is what has kept us alive, this trait of being over precautious and over cautious, right? So we just have to be grateful for it, but then consider it as this overprotective parent. you know Listen to it, but you don't really have to do what they say. My mother, whenever I talk about the inner critic thing, I give this example to all my clients. See, when I was flying, my mother used to tell me before every flight to not take biscuits from any of the passengers. So she used to think somebody will kidnap me from the flight, and I used to tell her, mom, I am the lead of the flight, like how can somebody kidnap me? But then I stopped rationalizing with her, because every time I rationalized, she was like, why don't you just listen? So I understand that it comes from a place of care, and so is your inner voice. Your inner voice comes from a place of care, for sure, but then it just over amplifies it. So just listen to it, but do whatever you have to do any which ways.
If I may ask, is that when your mother says that, does it run in your mind, or does your inner voice say, if at all somebody needs to kidnap, I am going to be the person who's going to kidnap?
Definitely. I think my mother knew it instinctively, but she still played the role of a mother.
See, I want to come back to this aspect of self doubt. I think for most of the people, okay, early in the times where they are having their inner voice, having this self doubt being reflected within them time and again, it starts from an angle of weakness. They think it's weakness when they begin to have these self doubts from within. How do they go about moving this from a position of weakness to a position of awareness? Like, how does that transition happen? What do they have to go through?
That comes with a practical understanding that everybody has it. Okay, you can't get life right all the time, you can't feel right all the time. No, you're not robots. So you're human beings who are here to experience life, and you cannot learn anything unless there is ups and downs, right? So first thing comes with a practical awareness that everybody goes through it, right? From the prime minister of the country to anybody, they have it even when they go to a big event. See, I know of a teacher, a global teacher, I don't want to take the name, but she has this she's a very powerful speaker, and she's a very influential speaker. But she tells this to all of her students when she addresses the students. So you know what, when I'm having this big life event, 1 hour before the event, I'm just throwing up, I'm just feeling nauseous, I'm feeling as if I'm going to pass out. The stress levels are so high because her mind is playing tricks with her in spite of doing a lot of such events. But now how she has reconfigured it is, she doesn't get panicked when she is throwing up and feeling nauseous and feeling like passing out. What she says is, the more I puke, I think the more sales conversion I'm going to have, because I'm going to be super effective. She has reframed it that way. So when she pukes more, she just looks at it as a very good sign. Yeah, she has done that as a practice over the years, and I think we should start looking at it that way.
Sounds fair enough. Okay, so since you mentioned about how somebody processes it and uses it to their advantage, I want to get into the aspect of, is this a sign? Taking out from the example that you told me, Is this a sign that your inner critic is actually driving your decisions and probably holding you back?
The inner critic, that's what it tries to do. It tries to drive your decision. But then again, what that is your role. You use your intellect to take the decision, but you listen to it, because always comes to give you a caution. See, when you're too afraid of certain scenarios or a certain high stakes situation, there are only two possibilities. One, you're absolutely not prepared, because of which you're actually scared as to how is it going to backfire. Another scenario is you're actually prepared, but then you do not know how the result is going to be. No matter how much you freak out, you still do not have any control of the situation, which is the fact. Right, so all that you have to do from your end is to make sure that you do your preparation right, and then just go show up. And when the fear shows up, when the inner critic has different ways, and fear is one of the tools that it strongly uses. So when that fear pops up and you start feeling different sensations in your body, say for me, when I'm afraid, I have like a real bad stomach ache. My hand starts sweating. And there are so many people, the symptoms are very similar. So you learn how your body responds to this fear. And when those symptoms come in, just ground yourself. It's all right. Just taking a few breaths usually calms you down instantly. If you have done your preparation, there's nothing to be worried.
So good that you mentioned about the symptoms. Okay, so the symptoms that you mentioned predominantly belong to the physicality of it, the kind of things that we experience in our physical self. Okay, but then what if there are some other patterns that come to the fore in our actions because of us giving into this inner critic? Are there some patterns, for example, because of this inner critic from voice from within that is creating the doubt for ourselves? It results in procrastination or overthinking about it, or trying to probably go towards the goal of perfectionism. Like, do you see these things coming into the picture because of that?
Yes, absolutely. Be it procrastination, be it perfectionism, be it being stuck in confusion, right? All the three things are primarily because of how our little voice is playing games with you. I usually give this example to clients. Now, consider two small mini versions of an angel and a devil sitting here on your shoulder. One is the devil, one is the angel. Okay, constantly both of them are talking within your head. Okay, and you are this one person who is going to finally take the decision and do the actions, right? But then the difference is the angel actually speaks in a very low tone, so it's very calm. But then the devil is screaming. That's your little voice, right? Where it kind of amplifies everything which can go wrong, and it infuses fear constantly, right? So it knows how to paralyze you and stop you and make you slow, so that you take the decision very very wisely, so that it doesn't end up being dangerous for you. The purpose of the inner voice is to see how it can keep you safe. But also, we'll have to understand the professional context that if you're safe, you're actually stuck. You're not really making any progress. So we will have to make a choice. If you want to be safe, then you'll obviously let it make decisions for you. But if you want to grow beyond the safety that the little voice is trying to push you towards, you just have to move.
Safety is being stuck. That's powerful, actually. So a lot of people try to look at safety in all sort of aspects in their life: social safety, emotional safety, financial safety, and security. But then I'm just trying to see whether they all need to rethink that angle of looking at it. Okay, so since you mentioned about how we need to control these patterns that come to us when the inner critic is being very vocal, um, are there ways where we can look at, uh, or for an individual to identify what the critique from inside is telling isn't actually the truth?
It most probably is not false too. Most often, what it says is true, but that's only 1 or 2% of truth. Okay, you can't really say it is absolutely not true. It has some truth, but it just over amplifies, over magnifies, and says, "Hey, the worst situation is going to happen." Right? So
So
again, I'll go
probably,
back to
so probably what the voice from within says is true, but not to the gravity at which it says is true. Could that be the right articulation around that?
Absolutely.
So the inner voice seemed to be a drama queen. Is
Yes,
that,
it
is
is.
that what you're saying?
It thrives on drama. It thrives on drama, and it thrives on your confusion. And most often you see, whenever you're confused and you have multiple options in front of you, your inner critic is the loudest.
Okay, okay.
Okay? When you want to be perfect in a place where say a college student is going for an interview for the first time, their inner critic is the loudest in their life. Okay. And also, I have observed a very interesting thing in my own experience. See, I go to a lot of events, I host a lot of events, I talk in a lot of events. I had two events consecutively in a span of 2 days, and the scale of the events were very different. In one event, I was hosting like high end business owners of good 500, 600 people, and I was freaking out the day before. But on the day of the event, before the participants all came in, again I had all the physical symptoms, but when I went to the stage, it was very easy for me. The same week, I had another event, and here I was giving them a proposal about me doing some good work for charity. But then, if that deal got through, I would actually get a very big exposure to a much wider and a bigger audience. Okay, my possibility of actually getting business was in the first event, which was huge. But here, I was actually proposing for charity. Guess which one I was more afraid of?
Charity.
See, you might think, hey, why would you be afraid of charity? Because it means something to me. I thought it is very difficult for me to go find who needs the service. So if they can actually procure, I can just go deliver. So it is something which is very close to my heart. So I was more scared there. And that week, something shifted in me. Like, hey, the inner critique comes out only when you are sitting in a place where it really means something to you.
See, one of the things that I could relate to with respect to how this inner critique functions, right? When I was in class 12, all the exams that I went in to write, every time when I had a feel of, hey, I'm completely blank, I don't know how I'm going
Mm,
to take on this exam. That's the kind of the voice that kept coming back to me before I walked into the examination hall.
mm.
More often than not, that voice led me to me writing the exam really well.
Right.
So
See,
I,
sometimes you take it positively, so you also put in the efforts.
right,
It does serve you in many cases. But you should know as you grow in your career, because the challenges are going to be a little bit more similar. Say you are at work, and the size of the impact that you're going to create is going to be more. So the side of your you something backfiring is also going to be more. But if you just understand the pattern that you have on when is it getting triggered, when is it at its high, when you understand that pattern, it becomes very easy for one to start taking charge of the situation.
fantastic. So I just want to shift gears and talk about something on the next stage of it. So there is always this self doubt that we talked about. Okay, how do we go about as leaders, as professionals, as people in decision making roles? How do we go about reframing this self doubt into awareness and probably translating this limitation into a kind of a learning?
That's the only way we can make better use of this inner voice, right? See, when the inner voice comes, there's a lot of fear, there is a lot of thought process. You think ahead and live few consequences already. So what happens is, naturally, you become very self-critical. When you fail, you become very self-critical. When you're self-critical, what are you saying? Hey, you know what, I really can't do things. So it's a loop of negativity. Instead, when you start reflecting, when when you're compassionate with yourself, sometimes it boils down to just that. When you're compassionate with yourself, you don't go into the self-criticism mode, you go into the self-reflection mode. And the self-reflection is very simple. In a way, you're constantly searching, what can I learn? Okay, fine, what has happened has happened. Now how can I turn it around and make it a positive experience for myself? See, even if it is a very high stakes situation, you have lost something, a job or a proposal, or a huge chunk of money, or whatever it is. It can even be your name at sometimes. Probably somebody mistook you because it backfired. Stakes might be high. Even if the stakes are higher, you being more critical on yourself doesn't serve anybody, right? It doesn't serve you, it doesn't serve your family, it doesn't serve the professional agenda. It serves nobody. It just feeds your inner critic and keeps re emphasizing that you're not very capable, and it's not going to do any good for you in the next deal as well. So be more self compassionate and see how you can steer the conversation in your mind towards self reflection. How can you say, okay, fine, what is the thing that I have learned out of it? How can I be better the next time? That's the only way to go about.
So, since you mentioned about how to reframe it or how to rephrase it, okay, is there if I could ask one top of the list kind of technique or activity or a tool that one could apply on themselves in going about doing this?
Okay. Make self reflection a habit. If you're really looking at growing in leaps and bounds in your career professionally, and to become a successful person in any way, be it financial success, be it successful in your relationship and in family, self reflection is a very important tool. That is why, if you see the most successful people in the world, they have a reflection time scheduled in their calendar where they do not take any calls, they do not take any meetings, they prioritize it. Okay. When you are, it's just like working out. When you're working out on an everyday basis, your muscles are built, so you're habituated to work out, right? So your muscles know how to respond to, even if there's an accident, they quickly bounce back, with their muscle memory, right? Similarly, when you have it as a habit to self reflect, and it doesn't have to be like one day, 1 hour, 2 hour, no, just take like 5 to 10 minutes in a day to reflect. Okay, what went well, what did not go well, how am I going to change the next day? Coming from a very positive standpoint on how we're going to approach life the next day. I think it's a very simple way of looking at things. It's a simple tool, but a lot of people undervalue it. It is not important how big or small the tool is. It is how much you apply it. That's what matters. So making self-reflection as a habit is what can help people.
Understood. So now that you mentioned about self-reflection as a tool, right?
Yeah.
Um I've repeatedly heard about from a lot of people. Although I'm not really subscribed to that aspect of it because I've lost the habit of writing. A lot of people have told like journaling helps. Can you elaborate a little bit on how that works?
It does. See, journaling, if you go to a therapist, they employ talk therapy. Say, now imagine that you have a champagne bottle and then you kind of shake it up. So there's a lot of bubbles which is formed, there's a lot of pressure. So you open the lid, it just, boom, it comes out, right? So sometimes we human beings also become like that. There are certain experiences which makes us very agitated, so it has to come out. So when the hurt level is too much, right, so you either talk to people or you let out the thoughts through writing, because when you write, there's a certain part of your brain which just gets lighted up, right? So that is why kids retain more when they write in practice. So it's also a easier way to let go. It purely depends on what is the emotional state that you are in. If you're extremely overwhelmed, you're extremely hurt, journaling works like magic.
Interesting. So if we do a comparison between talking to a professional or having a coaching conversation as compared to journaling, okay, like which one would suit for what kind of personality or situation or the position or situation that they are in? Like how does one get to make a choice like which one works better for them?
See, purely trial and error. I have tried multiple things because I also coach people, so I cannot prescribe something to them, and I have not tried it and seen the effects myself, right? So for a person like me, I am not a big fan of writing, purely because of how I have learned all my life is to speak and communicate. I'm more of a speaker, right? So when I sit and communicate with my coach kind of pricks my mind to go to the paths which I am not naturally seeing. See, there is always a benefit of having a professional, because when you do things on your own, it's DIY. You're just figuring things out. But when you're sitting with a professional, the professional knows which direction they have to steer you. And by default, you do not do things which are comfortable for you. But the whole process of self development is making you do things which are uncomfortable and help you grow through it. Right? So it purely depends on what the person wants. But journaling as a tool helps. But when you're with a professional, they know how to weave their magic.
Okay, so having a coaching conversation or talking to a professional is seeking support from outside. So apart from the self reflection exercise and probably a journaling habit, Are there any other simple yet daily habits that one could actually utilize for their own self growth?
Absolutely. Meditation. If you've asked me like 4 years, 5 years back, if somebody has told me meditation, I would have been like meditation and all doesn't work. But now I understand the science better. See, what happens is whenever there is a problem, we'll have to take a decision and solve the problem creatively, right? And the more you do it very quickly, you become successful because people acknowledge that that's the style of your working, right? And there's a logical side of your brain and that's the creative side of your brain, and then both the sides of the brain are connected with like a thick bunch of nerves, right? And there are scientific evidences that these nerves actually have grown thicker in regular meditators. So people who are meditating, they're actually grounded, and you don't even have to do many hours of meditation. You just, yeah, even if it is multiple times in a day, 3 by 3 meditation works wonders. So just 3 minutes in the morning, 3 minutes in the afternoon, 3 minutes in the night. Again, it sounds very simplistic, and when it is simplistic, we tend to overrule it, right? So when you tend to meditate, ground yourself, there's a little bit of a calm energy, and when the calm energy is there, you also tend to not take decisions in a rush. So if you have to see how we can make it work individually for people, basically understanding the triggers. Everybody has like a set of triggers. So be aware and understand, okay, this situation is going to happen, which means that I will get triggered. So how can I ground myself in that scenario so that I can creatively solve the problem as quickly as possible?
Now, since you mentioned about meditation as a tool, okay, so meditation as a tool, does it help to channelize the inner critic to be more useful for us, or does it help to um the move away the inner critic from ourselves so that we are enlightened?
No, see, moving away the inner critic is never going to happen. Let's get that right. The inner critic is going to travel with you till the last breath. That is going to be the reality. Okay, if somebody is telling some technique is going to move it away, don't believe them, because that is an evolutionary process of how human beings have survived. So the inner critic is not going anywhere. But then, how can we keep it in check is the question. And when you meditate, you are actually more grounded. You do not take decisions in a jiffy, right? So that way you're more you're more calm in making a decision as to what you're going to do. Otherwise, what happens is one bad decision after the other bad decision after the other bad decision, the whole day gets ruined, right? That doesn't happen in regular meditators, if you see.
Okay, okay. So now I want to get into the aspect of the embrace of imperfections. Okay. See,
Right.
the inner critic exists for a fact to point out the imperfections that we have with ourselves, right? The shortcomings or the things that we feel we could have done better or we feel we are not really good at. So that's what it keeps talking about. Okay. So how does embracing these things that are coming out actually helps or becomes a powerful tool for leaders to grow in their respective journeys?
That's a very interesting question. See, when you look at imperfections, Sharon, there are a lot of people that I have observed based on my experience. Those imperfections are, people hold it with a lot of shame, and shame is actually a very, very strong emotion. When you're holding something with shame, what you try to do is you do not want anybody else to see it. That's why you protect your imperfections such a way that you want to only show the perfect version of you. you know if you're holding something like that, if there is a pattern of holding something like that, definitely need professional help.
Okay.
Not because something is wrong with you, if you're serious about your growth, because it is going to keep slowing you down forever if you don't fix it. See, it's like you're limping because there is some kind of a wound in your leg, in your knee, right? And it is keeping on again and again, again and again, it is becoming hurtful. Then you'll have to get treatment, right? So you'll have to understand where is it actually coming from, why are you holding that imperfection with shame. If that gets sorted, you will actually start associating with that. You will not be freaking out when it comes to the forefront, and you don't have to.
Okay. So I wanted to ask, when we talked about imperfections or when we opened up on this topic, I want to understand accepting imperfections is one aspect. Okay. Projecting authenticity and confidence is another aspect. Okay.
Yeah.
Are these two very different subjects, or there could be a link, or there could be a journey from this to that, or something like that?
It is definitely linked, in my opinion, because if you want to be an authentic person, you cannot leave behind the imperfect version of you. If you want to be authentic, there is a part of you we cannot keep that in hiding. And when you keep that in hiding, you definitely are not authentic. So if you're looking at becoming a well-rounded leader who's authentic and who's progressive, imperfection is a part of you. And anything which is a part of you, there has to be some level of acceptance in your heart. And if you can develop it, wonderful. If you cannot develop it, go for professional help.
Okay. So there's also, see, especially for people in positions of leadership and decision maker roles, there's always a constant striving for excellence in whatever the roles that they are in, whatever the domains that they function in. Okay. So striving for excellence is one, having an ambition for it is another thing. And there's an aspect of, if I may put a terminology called destructive perfectionism. So how do we go about drawing the line between being ambitious and trying to be self-destructive in the name of trying to be very perfect?
Okay. Well, that's a very, very important question in today's episode. I'll tell you why. Why would somebody become, destructively perfectionist? Why would somebody become like that? Because they do not want you to see the other side of them. Because there's no tolerance for people viewing them in any other way. It's more of a personal issue rather than the ambition. It has more to do with how they are hiding the hurt rather than the ambition, which is the truth. I'm not even sure if anybody is going to come back and fight with me for this, but that's the truth. When you're ambitious, you're like a small child, right? The child, no matter how many times they fall, there's no shame. They just get up and again run, right? So they run because the goal is very clear. You know what? I need to go. No matter how many times I fall, I just get up and go. I fall down, I hurt myself, whatever it is, the child will do something if they decide to do it, right? And all of us have carry that kind of a spirit in adulthood also, but then we also carry along certain wounds, which was gathered through certain experiences. And we do not want to relive those wounds because those wounds still stay fresh after many years, right? So the destructive ambition actually stems from there. You know what? I don't want anybody to see me failing. That's a very different thing. That's not ambition. You're striving to put up an image of you because that's the image that you want to project,
Okay,
right?
sounds fair. So from your experience in working with a lot of professionals, okay, um, if you can share, uh, it can be a success story or it can be a success episode in
Mhm.
in whatever the magnitude that you have worked with somebody, on how they used or channelized their inner critic into becoming better at what they are in terms of their performance, in terms of their excellence, or whatever the way. Has there been some kind of episodes that you can share? Probably one.
Yes. So that was this gentleman who wanted to get promoted to a CXO level, and obviously the person was had good caliber, good technical skills, and had good people management skills. Everything was in place. The gentleman came to me because he said he was lacking confidence while speaking, and I also do communication coaching because I love speaking. So I thought it's going to be a communication kind of a project. So we took it up, and I gave him certain activities, very simple activities, and for some reason the gentleman could not do. And when I questioned him after a week or so, he just erupted. Okay, and it was very fascinating for me. So I got on a call and asked, "Hey, what's really happening? This was something that you agreed, and you said you will be able to give it time. Then why you're not doing it?" And then the next coaching call was not about communication; it was about his anger, right? Because in professional scenario, in personal scenario, he always had this image for him that he will do everything right. And just because he couldn't do certain things, and then I asked, it triggered a lot of emotions in him, and it was a very interesting fact. So and then we sat and dig deeper where it started, and there were some childhood experiences that he was still holding on to. When we worked around that, now that is gone. Now he does everything with a lot of ease. So that's always the added advantage when you fix things at the root. It becomes a very easy life. It's not just becomes an easy profession because you've changed as a person. The identity has shifted altogether. So that was one project where we started off with something and we actually ended in a different way, and he's doing really well now.
Fantastic. So I think we have come to a fair point of closure with respect to this conversation aspect of it. Okay, and I want to ask you, uh, what's next on the Inside Out conversations?
Thank you so much, Aaron, for the questions today. And the next episode, I'm going to grill you on certain aspects of branding. So, in the last episode, we spoke about how can we convert the vision into a brand voice. And the next episode, I'm going to ask you more about, who are the target audience, because our branding isn't for everyone, and most often we get carried away with the numbers, number of followers, number of subscribers. We get carried away with those numbers, and we forget that we're not trying to become influencers, we're trying to become a brand. So I'm going to ask you more questions about it, and I'm super excited already.
That's a very sought after area, which a lot of people want to understand the deep secrets of how to grow your follower count or something. So
Yes.
I hope the realities are not going to break their bubble, but I'll be happy if it breaks their anybody who's going to listen into, if it breaks their bubble into the right side of them understanding. I'll be more than happy there. Yeah.
I think I'm going to drop my questions like that. Let us break that bubble. I think a lot of people are sitting very comfortably inside the bubble, so let's break it together.
Fantastic. So I think for this wonderful conversation that we have had so far, if at all anybody wants to connect either on this topic or anything related to how to channelize and build your inner personality, I have Manju's QR code for her Instagram profile, and you can connect with her and you can DM her about anything that you have related to this episode or to any other episode as well. So that's wonderful. So, what we have heard today is that doubt doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're growing. The inner critic will always be there. The key is learning how to lead the conversation and not lose it. Thank you, Manju, for helping us see that the voice in our head can be a partner but not a problem. I'm Charan, and this is the Inside Out Conversations where personal growth meets public presence. See you again in the next episode. Bye bye.